Welcome back. We're now hearing Michael Saylor saying he is not worried about selling his Bitcoin or MicroStrategy's Bitcoin, as we are now effectively at the stage where they are selling the shares in their stock to pay the dividends on their preferred shares, and potentially at the end stages of the bull market, in my view. In today's video, we're going to be exploring what is going on in the Bitcoin and crypto space. The SEC just had a roundtable where the chairman said we are not a securities and everything commission, effectively saying that crypto is a huge focus for the SEC right now. And they even had a roundtable recently with industry participants, some of the crypto providers that we see, some of the legacy financial companies, as well as the CFTC and SEC, to really kind of bring everybody together and kind of talk about what is the path forward for crypto. And so a lot of people are looking at this as the most bullish thing possible, and it may be. But where are we in the crypto cycle? Well, we're now in Q4 of 2025, which is, we are now way past 18 months after the Bitcoin halving. Maybe not way past, but at least a few days. And by the time you're watching this, even further. And you can see on this Bitcoin halving chart, this is days since the Bitcoin halving, we are now at the historical tops from the previous cycle and the cycle before that. But people keep screaming, Cryptoviser, we haven't seen the euphoria phase in the market yet. Well, that's not how markets work. Just because you're not feeling euphoria doesn't mean we're not in the euphoria phase. And so we're going to be exploring all of this. We're going to talk about the Ethereum treasury companies, the Bitcoin treasury companies, the Bitcoin mining companies that pivoted to AI, like Bit Digital, Bitfarms, Iris Energy, Cypher Mining, and more. So make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. We upload every single day to bring you the latest happening in the financial world completely for free. Also, do me a favor, give the video a free thumbs up, because thumbs up are free. Crypto is not. And remember, guys, these are just my opinions and my analysis on the market. Obviously, I could be wrong. You can disagree with me, but these are my opinions and what I'm doing in my portfolio and in my investing strategy. So if you disagree, let me know why, but do it in a, somewhat respectful manner in the comments. Moving right along, let's get right into today's video. So Sir Crypto Tips on X, Toby Cunningham, who we've covered before on this channel, he said, I had a close friend reach out to us the other day who during the last two Bitcoin peaks wanted to start buying Bitcoin. The canaries are everywhere. We are not going to escape another bear market. Enjoy the bull market while it lasts, and don't forget to take profits. And that is the sentiment, and that is the part of the cycle that we're at, right? When people don't think that we're in euphoria, it's usually an indicator we already passed euphoria, right? Because nobody was talking this way in the bottom of the market. Nobody was talking this way in the bear market. We were, because we were the most bullish that you could be when FTX collapsed. I mean, I told my viewers literally 1 week or 2 weeks before FTX collapsed, I told my viewers on this channel, you may want to consider taking losses in your portfolio, closing positions out. That way you have money aside in case the market does crash, because we were approaching the bottom of the market, in my view, based on my thesis. And sure enough, I was correct to the day. And so when FTX collapsed and we went down to $15,500, I told my viewers, guys, this is it. This is it. Everybody's freaking out. This is when we buy. I actually just looked at one of my portfolio positions in Bitcoin, and the position was opened up at 19 or 18,000. I think it was like $18,900. And it was opened up at that FTX collapse bottom. And so that was the macro bottom of the market. We called it on this channel because we prepared for it. And now people are saying, no, we're not at the top of the market. We're not in euphoria. Raoul Pal says it's going to be 5 years. Michael Saylor said no more bear market. Eric Trump said we're going to have $1 million in the future for Bitcoin. And all those things may be true, but we are going to have a bear market. We are going to correct in the market. And as I explained, I was laying out this thesis all year about we are going to hit the top at some point, right? And now that we're literally at the top and people didn't take profits. They're like, no, Cryptoviser, we haven't hit the top. We haven't hit the top. It's like, no, we did hit the top just because you bought the top. And by the way, a lot of these Bitcoin treasury companies have been buying the top of the market. And so I think it was in August, I got a call similar to what Toby said here. I got a call from somebody who historically only asks about crypto or investing at the top of the markets. And that confirmed my thesis that we were at the top. And since that time, Bitcoin has been trending down. The treasury companies have all been trending down. And so these are counter indicators, especially for people like Sir Crypto Tips or like myself that, we're heavily involved in this market and researching and analyzing what's going on in the financial markets. And when people who are not reach out, typically that means that social sentiment is so high, right? They're seeing people, posting screenshots. So, oh, I made $15 million on this perpetual DEX trade on Shiba Inu coin or, on hyper liquidation or whatever, right? That is a top indicator because those things don't happen in the bear market. I mean, when FTX collapsed, we had YouTubers and influencers out here saying, guys, we're going to $1,000 Bitcoin. And I'm like, there's no way we're going to $1,000. Like, the initial collapse was it. The smart money was buying. And now the smart money has been selling. And so then we reach the Michael Saylor, right? Because a lot of people listen to what he says and they just take it for gospel, right? But I listen to what he says and I think that he really does believe in Bitcoin and I think that he is trying to do, the right thing. I don't think that he's like trying to scam anybody, right? But the thing is, he can say whatever he wants. He could say Bitcoin's going to go to $50 million. That doesn't mean it is. And so they recently asked him about if he would be forced to sell Bitcoin, because I want you guys to realize what is going on here. They now have Stride, Strike, Stretch, and Strife. These are debt or convertible debt or whatever you want to call it. It's debt, right? These are other products that they created that give basically holders preferred share in MicroStrategy Bitcoin. And so between all of these products, they have about 50 to 60 million dollars per month in dividends that they have to pay out. But MicroStrategy is not a cash flowing business, right? They do make some money from their software business, but not that much. And so they're not really making any money. Now, the MicroStrategy bulls will say, but Cryptoviser, on their last SEC filing, they said they made $30 billion. No, they didn't make shit, right? That's all unrealized capital gains. And so if they're not selling their Bitcoin, they're not actually making anything. So it's just financial gibberish to make you think that they're making money, but they're not. And so the only way that they can pay these dividends is by, number one, selling the Bitcoin, number two, making money, which they're not doing, either of those two, or three, continuing to sell more shares of their company or these products to then pay the dividends. And that's exactly what they're doing. Now, we're going to get to that video in a second, but I want you guys to see this. Shay Svarts on X said this. He said MicroStrategy raised $128 million at the end of September in common and preferred ATMs, which is selling these MSTR shares or these debt products on the open market. So if you're buying MicroStrategy, you may have actually been buying it directly from MicroStrategy. Only $22 million of this $128 million were used to buy Bitcoin. The excess of about $106 million is the highest single excess raised since the beginning of their capital raise plan in October of 2024. Why are they doing this? Well, they have $545 million, about $50 to $60 million per month that they have to pay in dividends. And the only way that they can pay the dividends right now is those three things that we talked about. And they're not making money, so they're not doing it that way. They're not selling Bitcoin, so they're not doing it that way. So how are they doing it? They're doing it by selling shares. And so any way you put it, that is the definition of a P-Onzi, right? That is, you're raising new capital from new investors to pay the older investors. And so You can see that at the end of September, they raised $11.3 million through Strife, this perpetual stock. They raised $400,000 through Stride, which shows that they're not really able to make that much money from these sales. And they made $160 million from MicroStrategy. So either way you put it, right? Because they're going to say, well, we use the Strife money and the Stride money to buy more Bitcoin, and we used the MicroStrategy ATMs, which is $116 million, to pay the dividends and also buy Bitcoin. But the key here is it's basically the same thing. I mean, technically, you could say that they sold Strife on the open market to pay their dividends, and they paid Stride on the open market to pay the dividends, and whatever they didn't have left, that's what they used in MicroStrategy. That's the part of the cycle we're at. And we're still in bullish territory, right? Even though the market is trending down. And by the way, when MicroStrategy did this, the price of MicroStrategy, I guess I could pull up the chart to show you. MSTR went from about $340 right here. You can see it right here, $350, all the way down to $300, which shows that there's not really that much buying pressure. So they're selling into a downward trending market, into a lower liquidity market. And people are like, but Cryptoviser, it pumped back up after. The trend is your friend, guys. And the trend is down. Where are we going? Down. That's the trend. And it's going to continue to be the trend, especially if they're doing things like this. And so again, you have to pay attention to where we are in the cycle. And also, Michael Saylor is saying at the top of the market, they're not going to sell any Bitcoin. They're just going to keep buying Bitcoin at the top. Well, maybe they should have been selling to raise money for a bear market. Even if they crash the price themselves by selling, then you just rebuy back at lower prices. Buy low, sell high. Let's listen to what Michael Saylor says here. Oop, forgot the audio. And by the way, don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up and also hit the subscribe button. You could also become a channel member by clicking the join button or subscribe plus button down below. And you're going to want to stick around because these videos from this SEC roundtable situation thing, it's pretty funny. We even have somebody from the CME group flipping off somebody from Kalshi or Polymarket. But before we go there, let's watch Michael Saylor.
How do you respond to some of the concerns out there, if not just direct criticism, about the potential sales of any of your holdings and what that could do to the market?
We're so way over collateralized, it's hardly a concern. I think we've got $74 billion of Bitcoin. We've got $6 billion of these preferred credit instruments outstanding right now. They don't even come due. I think it takes 1 or 2% of our annual equity issuance to cover our dividends. So not a big concern.
How do you respond to some of the concerns?
Well, not a big concern for him, but if you're a shareholder, you should be concerned because as I just showed you, just raising $100 million, which is one of their smaller raises. If you look at their purchases, I mean, it was 122 million, but before that it was 100 million, 60 million, 200. I mean, you could see that their raises are getting smaller and smaller. And just raising $100 million in MicroStrategy at the market, it dropped the price from $350 to $300, which is a 15% drop. So what's going to happen next week or the week after that or the month after that as we continue to trend down and they continue to dilute shareholders? It just makes no sense that people can be bullish on that. Meanwhile, in other Bitcoin treasury companies, Row Rider said this. It's a bloodbath for Strive, also known as ASST. We'll show you the chart in just a minute. Another Bitcoin treasury Ponzi, as Row Rider says. He says since they can't raise enough cash through debt, they'll claim they'll build leverage via copying Michael Saylor's pyramid of preferred shares, with dividends, of course, funded by infinite dilution. The market is calling BS on this game. In 5 days, it was down 40%. And this is, by the way, keep in mind, Strive just made the announcement that they were going to purchase Semler Scientific in an all-stock transaction. Semler Scientific is another Bitcoin treasury company, valued on the market as $452 million. And you can see that Semler Scientific is trending down on the year. Again, Bitcoin is at all-time record highs effectively, right? In the $110,000, $125,000 range. Semler Scientific is down on the year, right? MicroStrategy, down on the year. Stride, down on the year. Well, maybe not down on the year, but down since they made the announcement of Bitcoin, right? And the ultimate tell, in my view, is Nakamoto. And again, by the way, all these companies are buying Bitcoin at all-time record highs, okay? Nakamoto, down on the year. And so as I've been explaining, MicroStrategy is not the same as these other Bitcoin treasury companies because they were the first and they're way ahead. But these other Bitcoin treasury companies, I believe what Row Rider is saying here, that the market is calling BS. And by the way, it's happening with MicroStrategy as well, right? Because MicroStrategy can't sell Bitcoin, their shares on the open market without massive dilution and massive destruction in the value of the actual stock. But they don't care. That's not their goal. Michael Saylor has literally been telling you for years, don't buy MicroStrategy, buy Bitcoin. Short MicroStrategy, buy Bitcoin, because that's exactly what he is doing. But the bulls are like, no, Cryptoviser, he's a genius. Michael Saylor said we're going to go to $5 million. So who gives a shit? Follow what he's doing. And remember, Jim Chanos started shorting MicroStrategy and buying Bitcoin in the middle of the year of 2025. And so far, in the last 3 or 4 or 5 months, that trade is good because Bitcoin is up and MicroStrategy is down. And so I agree. The market, you have to trade the market in front of you, not the market that you want. That's how we are able to call the top of the markets. That's how we are able to call the bottom of the markets. Maybe not the exact dollar amount, but we know around the time that it's going to occur based on Bitcoin halving charts, based on the sentiment, based on the money flows, based on the trends, based on all the things that we talk about on this channel. That's why you should make sure you subscribe. That way you never miss a new video. And remember, these are just my opinions. You don't have to agree with these opinions. That's fine. But this is my opinion on the market and how I look and view and analyze the market. I can change my opinion any day of the week, any day of the month. But generally speaking, my macro thesis has not changed, right? I've been very consistent all year and pretty much since the channel started in understanding, the right times to get in, the right times to get out of the market. You have to be counter where the market is. Going back to the beginning of the video, when you get those calls from people who never talk about finance, never talk about investing, and they're like, oh, well, should I buy Bitcoin at this point? What about Ethereum? What about Shiba Inu? It's like, that's the top of the market. That is peak euphoria, okay? It just is. And so the market prices these things in. That's why I say the trend is your friend. We are seeing massive, massive value destruction on all of these companies that are doing all of this financial gibberish, saying, oh, well, Strive, we're going to buy this company with all stock because we want to get their Bitcoin and this and that. This is exactly what happened in the previous cycle with Celsius, Voyager, Terra Luna, BlockFi, 3 Hours Capital. They were all buying and lending and borrowing and lending and to each other. And remember, FTX tried to buy BlockFi for $1 billion to prevent BlockFi's collapse, because if BlockFi collapsed, FTX collapsed. And then they couldn't raise the money and everything collapsed. And so the same thing is occurring here. Strive is buying Semler Scientific in an all-stock transaction. And what happens to the price of Strive? It goes down. Strive is down 70%. From middle of September to the end of September. It's down 70%. Nakamoto, just in September, is down 90%. The market is already pricing this all in. Because with these value destruction, they can't sell shares on the open market. Nobody's buying these shares, which means they can't buy enough Bitcoin. to keep the prices elevated. Even MicroStrategy, they're buying less and less and less and less. And that tells you where the market is, what the market believes. Not what you believe, what the market believes. And so I personally believe that the market is pricing all the shit in, and the market is pricing in the end of the cycle and the collapse. Because, yeah, I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, I don't want that to happen. Obviously, I would like higher prices, but again, it's not the market I want. It's the market that's in front of us that we're trading. And so there will be a time to buy these companies, to buy Bitcoin, to buy cryptos. But we have a long way down first, right? I think we're in the complacency phase, to be honest, which is we're getting to this final point where the cliff is just going to fall. And I don't know when the cliff, we're going to fall down that cliff. I think it's going to be when these companies stop buying, and then the holders of the companies are like, oh, we are at the end of the cycle. The same way when FTX collapsed, everybody was so worried about going lower, but that was the bottom, right? So when everybody starts selling, yeah, we're going much, much lower. But there's a lot of confusion in the markets, and a lot of the confusion is because of things like this. SEC and CFTC roundtable has revived talks of harmonized oversight. And so what we're seeing is the CFTC and the SEC are getting together, and they're really coming together to bring crypto together. It says the US top financial regulators convened for their first joint roundtable in 14 years. The SEC and CFTC discussed ways to harmonize their approaches to financial oversight, particularly when it comes to digital assets. And so Paul Atkins, the SEC chairman, said the roundtable included panels featuring executives from major crypto platforms like Kraken and Crypto.com and was moderated by CFTC leaders. The event took place against a backdrop of political uncertainty, a looming government shutdown triggered by disputes over healthcare, and cuts in July budget bill threatens to stall legislative progress, including the Senate market structure bill. The leadership situation at the CFTC is also unsettled. And so there's been a lot of back and forth, right? But people are like, wow, this is so bullish. And it is. It is bullish for the long term, right? Because we don't have a Gary Gensler. We don't have this fight against crypto, this constant fight. But these things take time, right? They're not like overnight type situations. So you have the backdrop of the actual market pricing in major, major declines. I mean, these stocks are down 95%, and people are like, Cryptoviser, we're not at the end of the cycle. And it's like, what does this indicate then? 95%. And by the way, the insiders of Nakamoto that just got their shares unlocked, they have already been selling. And most of the insiders are Bitcoin maximalists. So the smart money knows what's coming and knows where the market is from a cycle standpoint. And they're getting the F out. And you're saying, no, Cryptoviser, we're at the most bullish time in history. We are going to go straight up to $500,000, Cryptoviser, and you're going to miss out. You're going to regret this decision. It's like, that's not how I invest. In every trade is just a trade. You buy, you move on. You sell, you move on. That's it. There's no emotion connected to it to say, wow, I regret that. That's how you get messed up. And so these SEC and CFTC, the CFTC and SEC situation is making people think that, wow, this is bullish. But it is in the future, not right now. Meanwhile, we're also hearing that the SEC granted a DPIN project called 00, a no-action relief over token distribution. The SEC said it will not pursue enforcement if 00's native token transfers remain with programmatic utility-based parameters. Hester Peirce highlighted how DPIN tokens differ from traditional fundraising transactions under the Howey test. And by the way, the chairman of the SEC said, public service announcement, we are not the Securities and Everything Commission, effectively saying they're the Security and Exchange Commission. What did Gary Gensler try to do? He tried to make it everything. You're a commodity, we are covering you. You're a crypto, we're covering you based on a law from 1930s, right? When crypto wasn't even conceptualized yet. And so this change is very bullish for the long term and very bullish for these companies that are going to be integrating more and more capabilities, technologies, interoperability, and all of that. But these things take time. But meanwhile, Terrence Duffy, he's right over here on the right side of the screen, this older guy. He's the CEO of CME Group. Now, I want to remind you, CME Group, this is traditional finance, right? And they're the world's leading derivative marketplace. Now, I also remind you, back in 2017 and also 2021, the CME Group and CBOE Group, they launched Bitcoin and crypto futures. The day that they launched these products was the top of the market. Because once they launched those products, they started trading against crypto without actually touching crypto. Now, we've covered those extensively in the past, but he joked about using Kalshi, which is like a betting platform, while in Las Vegas. And this person, MIT math nerd, it says, quickly asked how much Terrence made. And he said, "You made money, I broke even." And this gives you insight into why traditional finance doesn't like crypto, because they want to make all the money. Think about JP Morgan, the largest bank in the world, right? And definitely in the US. Their CEO for years, crypto's scam, crypto's fraud, crypto's this, crypto's that. But they're creating their own blockchain. They're creating their own crypto coin. And they're saying, oh, no, our coin is okay, but everything else is BS. It's because they want to make the money. They don't care about the technology. They just want to control the money, control the profits, and make money. That's it. And this is a very clear indicator of where this is. And by the way, it gets spicier in our next tweet. But let's watch this video first.
I was on a 2X market all weekend like a junkie. I was in Las Vegas with a bunch of clients. Casino never saw me because I was on his platform the whole time screwing around.
Terry, you failed to tell the audience whether you made money or not this weekend.
You made money. I broke even.
So there you have it, right? And the thing is, these betting platforms are becoming bigger and bigger. It was Kalshi that he was using. And it's effectively almost the same as a casino, right? You go to the casino, you may break even, you may get out a little bit high, but the edge is on the casino. But people know that and they still go to the casino, right? And so this next tweet is really going to give you a little bit more insight into their viewpoint. And I think it's really valid. I really do. Arthur Hayes said, go get them, F them up, perps for the people. And this is in response to that same guy, Terrence Duffy, over here on the right side. He flipped off Polymarket's CEO Shane over here on the left during this round table. And you'll see it right here in the video. Let's listen to what he says. And again, this guy Shane, who's going to be talking, he is the Polymarket CEO, another betting platform similar to Kalshi.
They want to win on blockchain. And really, you're at a fork in the road where, hey, I can either go and wait and lobby and do rulemakings for 5 years while everything happens offshore, and we're left with consumers having to work with guys like you who are a lot older, may not, with all due respect, but may not understand. They want to win.
And you guys may have missed it, but yeah, he threw him the finger right there. And basically, he's correct, right? These older generation executives at these big firms, they already have the upper hand. Like this idea that JP Morgan is going to be, instantly negatively affected by crypto is nonsense, right? But they know over time that crypto will grow. And so they want to control it all. And so how do they do that? For years, JP Morgan's CEO said, crypto's a scam, crypto's a fraud, for years, while on the back end creating their own blockchain, while on the back end supporting consensus financially with millions and millions of dollars for developing Ethereum. And they were doing this to slow everything down. Same way that Gary Gensler, put the most regulated crypto exchanges sued them. Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken. While meanwhile, he was having private meetings with FTX and then saying, oh, well, we're here to protect investors. No, they didn't protect a goddamn person, right? And that's a problem. It really is. And this is how a lot of things go, right, with the older generation. I was just talking to somebody the other day who works in corporate. And basically they were saying, like, it's very hard to get anything done because the older generation, they don't want anything to change. They want to keep doing the same thing, even though the environment that we are in is changing very rapidly. But they don't want to change things because they see that as a threat to, and they'll hold back, right, the younger executives who are trying to get things moving, get things changed, because they see them as a threat, right? They see them like, whoa, this person's trying to take my job. And if we change all this and it works out, then it looks like I didn't do a good job, right? And also I don't have the control. And sometimes, like, again, sometimes people need to step aside, right? A lot of these older generation, I mean, they're not retiring. I mean, just look at the government where we have people 80, 90 years old that just refuse to retire. It's like, go enjoy the rest of your life, not fighting everything in government, right? Like, why would you want to do that? And again, this is what this channel is about, right? It's about protecting the future financially so that you can step away, create your own business, do things. But again, part of the market is you have to look as the market changes. People are still saying at this point in the cycle, but Cryptoviser, in the previous cycle, we were, based on the previous cycles, we're supposed to be at $250,000. It's like, yeah, but we're not in the previous cycle, right? You can say to Jamie Dimon, like, banks are not supporting customers the way that they used to. People used to like banks because you can get a return on what your deposits are. And you're not going to get nickel and dimed for, overdrafting or not having a minimum balance or using, I mean, one of the banks that I was using, I remember you could only withdraw 3 or 4 times in a month. And it's like, why? That's my money. Like, why can't I take it out? Oh, well, that's the account that you have. And it's like, what? Right? Like, how does that make any sense? So yeah, this does seem very bullish, all of this round table and joking around and stuff like that, right? And it's all in good fun. But at the end of the day, it kind of tells us where we are in the cycle, that we're already there, right? We already are seeing the harmony in these ecosystems to move forward, change the regulatory process, get these market structure bills out, allow integration of TradFi and DeFi together. But guys, there's still a lot of negative going on, right? And one of those things is what we're seeing with the treasury companies. And it's not just the Bitcoin treasury companies. Ethereum treasury company BitDigital proposes raising $100 million with convertible note offerings. And we've covered BitDigital because they weren't even getting consensus for this vote. And now the vote went through. And they basically are looking to raise money, $100 million to buy more Ethereum. But again, they're going to be utilizing this debt facility similar to what MicroStrategy has done at essentially all-time record highs. Now, Ethereum has been wavering, but even with all the buying of Ether from these Ethereum strategy companies like Bitmine and SharpLink and ETHZilla, they're buying millions and millions of Ethereum, and the price hasn't moved. And I don't think it's going to for many years, because most of the ETH that they're buying is coming from like early investors and whales. If we go to validatorq.com, this will actually show us, 2 million Ether are still on a 35-day hold to exit the staking queue. And we're not even seeing that many Ether getting restaked. And so people are selling more than people are buying, apparently. That shows a downward trend. And I think that the Ethereum companies, they joined the party too late. I really think that that's part of the issue, because they joined in the middle of 2025. This is when all the other Bitcoin treasury companies popped up, when Nakamoto popped up, when Semler Scientific popped up. It may have been too late in the cycle. All the liquidity was already drained out, and at least for this cycle, right? But remember, just because the cycle is coming to an end, the bull cycle, doesn't mean that we're not going to have another bull cycle. We just have to go through a bear cycle first, and then we go straight back up. So this is the time to learn about how the cycles work, learn which companies are building valid strategies, right? Bit Digital, I think, is going to still be an okay company. Nakamoto, if they survive the bear market, this could be a generational opportunity, guys, to make so much money that you don't even know what to do with it. I mean, let's say Nakamoto, they own however much Bitcoin they own, right? I think it's like 6,000 Bitcoin or something like that. But let's say they own whatever amount of Bitcoin, hundreds of millions of dollars. And let's say Bitcoin crashes 50% and this goes down to 50 cents or 40 cents. You're not going to buy any of that? Because in the next cycle, if we go up to $250, $350, $400,000, Nakamoto could go to $5 from 50 cents to $5. It's a 10x. And if you're buying calls during the bear market for that $5 price, and we go above $5, it's going to be thousands of percents in return. So there's a lot of opportunity. By the way, there still is a lot of opportunity, right? The Bitcoin mining companies, Bitfarms, Iris Energy, Cipher Mining, these companies, I think, are going to do extremely well over the next year or 2 years, right? We may have a corrective phase because a lot of these are at all-time record highs. But we have to keep in mind the AI may be in a bubble, okay? But the infrastructure for building AI and the technology of AI, I don't think is going anywhere. I think it's going to continue to grow. And yes, the AI infrastructure will become more efficient and there will be more supply as these companies continue to ramp up. But we're probably going to go through a few years of these companies not making that much money, right? The AI software companies. But the AI software companies, they need the infrastructure companies. They need the power. They need the energy. They need the bandwidth to process all the information that their software is creating. That's why we're seeing Google partnering with TeraWulf, Google partnering with Cipher Mining, I think it was. The reason they're doing this is because they want to secure their place in this infrastructure because there's very high demand and very low supply right now of energy, the infrastructure, the bandwidth to process all of this AI compute. And so there's a huge opportunity here still, in my view, especially if we have dips. And Bitfarms may be the most undervalued here. If you look at the market cap compared to the energy load and compared to their infrastructure, you know, Iris Energy is already at $13 billion. And in my view, it's not even really the best AI play, okay? And when I say that, I don't mean, I mean more of, I think that other companies should have a higher market cap than Iris Energy. So that means maybe Iris Energy is overvalued, maybe the other ones are undervalued, but this is not going anywhere. NVIDIA is worth over $4 trillion, the entire collective market cap of the entire crypto market combined. And all they do is sell chips, effectively. Obviously, they do other stuff too, but CoreWeave, they're trying to buy Core Scientific. Why? Because they want the energy, they want the infrastructure. Whether it's going to happen or not, I don't know. But I don't see how these companies are not minimum double-digit billions of dollars in valuation. And a lot of them are under double digits. Cipher Mining is less than 5 billion. TeraWulf, less than 5 billion. Bitfarms, less than 2 billion US. Iris Energy is really the only one that's over $10 billion in valuation, and it's barely over $10 billion in valuation. And so if we continue to see AI grow, even if AI software companies are in a bubble, I don't think that the infrastructure is, because you need the infrastructure to continue to advance the growth of these companies. And companies like OpenAI, they're just trying to figure out AI and AGI and how to make it better and how to make products and how to make money on it. They don't want to focus on the infrastructure. And so that's why I think these other companies are going to do extremely well. Even in a toppish market for crypto, and potentially many other stock market as well, because a lot of stocks are at all-time record highs. But I think the infrastructure providers are going to do well. And by the way, the president just posted something on his Truth Social the other day about CBD and how CBD can be very good for health. And that could also indicate that we're going to see a bull market very, very soon in cannabis companies if they reclass marijuana at a federal level. And it's looking more and more like they're going to do that. One of the big companies, I think it's called Tilray. Tilray has been kind of pumping a little bit based on these kind of clues that are coming out since the middle of the year. You can see it was at 38 cents, and now it's at it's up almost 400% just since the middle of the year. And a lot of the reason is because it's starting to price in that, you know, cannabis is legal in most states, and if it gets reclassed at a federal level, these companies then can go and do more business. They can integrate with traditional finance, like with credit cards and stuff like that, and potential to make a lot of money here. And companies like Tilray, they have backup business because they're also an alcohol company, and so they have a backup if that doesn't work. So either way, this could be a winner. So there, although crypto, I believe, is topped and is going to be trending down, there's a lot of other areas that you could still make money. And I think that these companies that pivoted to AI are going to do extremely well. Let me know what you guys think down below. Remember, these are just my opinions and my analysis of the market. I could be wrong. You could be right. You could disagree. That's totally fine. But just let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Give the video a free thumbs up, and I'll see you on the next video. Crypto on.